Across the history of successful CCGs and TCGs, a meta in which 2 to 3 decks or archetypes are considered top tier has long been considered to be healthy. Many such games aspire to have such diversity but often fail. Yet, despite Flesh and Blood's competitive meta currently falling well within that range, something feels off, and many are unhappy. Is that just because trolls are going to troll, gamers going to complain, and in the social media amplifier it brings those attitudes to the forefront? Without a doubt, that is most certainly a factor. That said, I want to grant that there is perhaps more to it. First, Flesh and Blood rewards hero loyalty like no other game I've ever seen. Second, for a game that bills itself as being designed from the get-go as a competitive-focused game, is there thus an unspoken contract that all heroes should have a shot? While that's of course unreasonable in practice, I do think there's a certain argument there. So yes, while I think that the current Fab meta is balanced, and I fear what's going to happen when Starvo goes away, Viscerai, I understand at a basic level while people continually seem to be upset at the state of things. So tonight I'm breaking down why I think that's the case and why I acknowledge that having your hero on the outside may certainly feel bad, but on the flip side, things go around, things come around, and your time will indeed come. Probably, unless you're a ranger. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. Andrew here with you as always. Hope your guys' week has been great, not just in Fab, but also personally. Right now, as I shoot this on the other side of town over at Fab Foundry, well, it's Distant Dice, which is their storefront for Fab Foundry. They have a skirmish going on, and I also want to give a shout out to them. It somehow magically lined up with their 2-year anniversary, and they're celebrating 20% off all cards. I made a huge impulse purchase just yesterday. I spent more money than I probably should have catching up on some cards I needed at 20% off, which put them way below TCG players. So you should go over and do that as well if you're looking for stuff. It's a great deal. Free shipping if you get over, I don't know what the amount, it's like $25-$30 or something like that. Free shipping supports a good cause, and like I said, most of the 20% off puts it lower than TCG players. So when you go over there, use the link below. I get a little kickback from that, which will help me repay all the money I just spent. So usually I do that shout out at the end, but I want to get it in front of your faces because it's a great freaking deal. And also, we are sponsored by FabDB. They continue to sponsor us over here. They continue to be the best resource on the web for everything Flesh and Blood related. You guys know, of course, that you can go over there for your collection management, for your deck building. But did you know they also have other features that you can check out by upgrading your account? So go over and check out FabDB, and thank you guys for sponsoring us here. All right, so now, tonight, before we get into this, there's a lot of people who are going to be like, well, you like Starvo, blah, blah. So let me start with this. I've never personally played Starvo outside of felt table reps, right? Which I do generally with most heroes just to get a good idea of how they work, what I need to look for when I'm playing against them, and such like that. So I have no personal vested stake in him sticking around. That said, and I've been public about this, I'm very scared of what happens to our meta, not if, but when he certainly goes away, right? There's a lot of things happening there. Now, tonight's episode in of itself was actually not sponsored by. You get in the rut, you get in the rut, right? But it was inspired by a comment on our Starvo by the numbers, which was analyzing the data out of the calling just last weekend. Feels like longer ago. And this was by John Henson. John, thank you for continuing to watch and continuing to be a commenter and supporter. Basically, I'll just read the comment. One of the concerns I have with this meta compared to the Chane Vegas meta is that there are 4 more adult heroes that are available to be played, yet we see a truly dominant hero in Starvo, with only a few truly great alternatives despite the larger pool, and a recent subset that was supposedly meant to give all heroes new tools. Prism is basically it, with Runeblades all tier 1.5 perhaps. I'd be very curious to re-examine the RTN data and recent ProQuest season data, for some reason I recall seeing a larger diversity of heroes running RTN, even though Chane was a dominant force. And then the highlighted part there, I do understand that no TCG is perfectly balanced, and having 2 top decks within some fringe playables is often accepted. But I was hoping for more. And that, like I said, that comment right there, I was hoping for more, I think maybe sums up, I mean, let's be honest, the underlying question behind a lot of this is, why are people so pissed off, right? Things seem balanced. Well, not balanced. It seems like we have a good, in terms of, and that's why I say, in terms of CCGs, TCGs, in terms of how it works, having 2 to 3 to 4 decks at the top is generally accepted as being a good, healthy meta. So why is everybody pissed off? I mean, that's basically the question, right? And I think John did a really good job of basically putting that together in one sentence. He's like, I think I just expected more. So that was more what I wanted to examine tonight, is why, at a basic level, why does Fab feel different? Because I do agree, right? I agree that Fab maybe not feels different, but maybe we expect more. And I don't know if it's just because, by and large, so many people, I mean, let's be honest. There are a lot of games people said, this sucks, I'm going to go try something else, and they ended up in Flesh and Blood. And they really love Flesh and Blood because you can align with your hero and you can be loyal to your hero. And, like I said in the intro, there are a lot of people who have been on the same heroes for a long time, and you are definitely rewarded, right? You can say you have a 2.0 hero, you can definitely play at the tier 1.5 and win things, right? If you have good reps with that hero. Now, by things, I mean generally armories, maybe a lower level competitive tournament, but nobody's bringing it, like, the data's there. Nobody's bringing Azalea to a calling and doing well, right? They're just not, right? Or any of the, I poop on Azalea all the time because she's one of mine, but like Levia or whatever, right? You can have, to quote my friends, you can have truthers, but it doesn't necessarily do them great in all forms, right? So I think that's a reasonable question, is why does it feel worse in Flesh and Blood? And I think there's a couple factors there. The primary factor being that what they've created is a faction-based, horizontal design faction-based game, right? Where you pick a hero and your hero becomes your identity, right? I mean, I don't see it being very different as like a game like L5R, for example. There's that one picture going around, always has been, I'll see if I can get it and do it in editing, where the dude sits down with a crab hat on, like he was Crab Clan, and right, but it's the same type of thing, right? You're going to have Dorinthea truthers, you're going to have Boltyn truthers, and I mean, Boltyn's a great example. Like, he's not a very good hero, but like Jimmy Lee and like some other people out there, like, my God, how do those people bring a deck like that and, do as well as they do, right? It's because you're rewarded for having reps and knowing a hero. And so anyway, to get to the point, right? I think that's a huge part of it, is the hero loyalty that they've created, right? Flesh and Blood has done a great job in creating this world, right? You want to identify with your hero. I want to be a Dorinthea guy. I want to be on the Azalea guy, right? And you're identify with your hero. And if your hero just can't do it, that's frustrating, right? I get it. That's frustrating. Now, there's other people screaming at the screen right now. It's like, well, that's not how these games work. You just need to be flexible. Don't be an Azalea guy. That's fair as well. But I do think, and this is not a complaint. I want to be very, very clear about this. It's not a complaint. It's just trying to understand why, right? When you really look at it, Fab came out and said, hey, we are designed to be a competitive game. And I do think that there is an unspoken contract there that if you are designed to be a competitive game, you're not going to design things that aren't designed to be competitive, right? Which means that coming out of the gate, at least in theory, they said each one of these heroes is going to have an equal shot at being good. Now, of course, in practice, that's not realistic in practice. But what it does mean is that if, let's say the designers were like, you know what, and we literally have this in print, like it's been shown that they're like, we wanted Chane to be really, really good. Like they said that, right? So in the contract that's made of because this is literal, again, I'm using literally a lot here because it's true and we have the proof, right? They said, we're going to design a competitive game. So if in designing a competitive game, only 25%-ish of what comes out of each set is designed to be competitive, that's kind of interesting, right? So you can see why, I've been around these games for long enough that I'm not personally upset about it. But you can see why people would be, right? Because you design something for theme, people latch onto that theme, they think it's fantastic, they want to play it, but then it turns out in a B&R announcement, you kind of tell everybody that, well, only really one of these was meant to be good, but we sold you the other 75%. So I get it, right? I get it. Now, let's move on to the meta thing, right? Why are people so upset about, if you look back at the Chane meta, like Chane was very clearly dominant. People hated the crud out of Cheerios Briar. We talked a lot about that back then. I kind of thought that wasn't super fair, and I thought like Plunder Run took a lot of flack from. Now, what LSS told us was that yes, Plunder Run, Ball Lightning, and all that were indeed a problem, which is fine. But, we had Chane come out, and that was a problem. Then we had Briar come out, that was a problem. And now we had Starvo come out, which we're being told by the community sentiment, is a problem. So, right, it's kind of interesting to look at it from that perspective. And, I think that, and maybe I'm predispositioned to the anti, because, like I said, I'm afraid of what happens when this meta, I think the meta as it is right now is a very fragile thing. And when Starvo goes away, I think it just becomes kind of Viscerai everywhere, potentially. But, typically a meta is viewed to a certain extent as a pyramid by and large, right? That would be your healthy, you're truly healthy, right? You have a couple at the top, you have a couple below that, they have a chance of striking up, you have a couple below that, they have a chance of striking up, and then it goes down to the base. And, like I said, that's healthy-ish in whatever that means. But I do grant that right now, it kind of feels instead of being a pyramid, it kind of feels instead like it's a mushroom, right? And what I mean by that is that with a few exceptions, it feels that the ones at the top are so very insulated and the ones below it are so far below and have a very big hill to climb. Now, you can look at things like the Briar deck that made it through, that's pretty hot, right? What are people going to be able to do and innovate with that and go forward? I don't know. But on the flip side, you have Starvo, a tennis ball throw away from being out of the meta, and I don't know. And then is it Viscerai only? Is Prism gatekeeping all these other heroes, but when Bravo goes away, Prism goes away, and then all these others can come up, right? But in itself, isn't that kind of a good discussion, right? In that, if you were to sit down at your local tonight or tomorrow, whenever you go to your local this week, have that discussion of if Starvo goes away, you're going to have 9 conflicting ideas. Now, true, it's because there's no data on that, and everybody's got an opinion in these games. On the other hand, the fact that no one can certainly say, yep, it'll be Prism, because I don't think it necessarily will be, probably be this, right? But the fact is, doesn't that also mean that it's maybe healthy, right? In that the fact that when you have, Ice Lexi, how does Ice Lexi fit in? Nobody's talking about her by and large right now. I think that's really interesting, right? How if you take that away. But I do agree that currently it feels like you have the tier 1s, which is probably 2 of them, based on the data we saw, right? Going into it, I thought it was kind of a triangle. I was really surprised to see Viscerai as low as he was. 20% is not super bad. I think it was 17% actually, I think. But that's not super bad. But by and large, the rest of them below that were, I think it was Bravo was 30%, Prism was 20%. I'll put it up. I don't have it available to me right now, but I will put it up in the overlay. But I think it was like Bravo was like 30-ish, high 20s. Prism was like low 20s. I think Viscerai was 17. And I think below that it was like 6, right? So I think that supports my mushroom thing. So anyway, a little bit of a tangent I went off on there. But my point is, or not my point, the point of the cast is, why are people so upset about what we would otherwise consider to be a healthy meta? And again, I think it dials back to, even though there is no published, obviously there's no published contract between people hoped for more. And I think that's fair. And I do think that's fair. People hoped for more because you look at Flesh and Blood and it's so well done. Right? The game is really, really, really well done. But you have this recurring issue. One of my favorite quotes, I think I've quoted it on the channel before, right, is fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, they fooled us 3 times now, so to speak, with the big hero coming out in each new set. And at some point you have to start to question whether or not that's intentional design to just sell product. That's just the way, I'm sorry, but that's a truth, right? And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. They are selling a product. But you can understand why game players, and especially in a game where you have created character loyalty, let's not say hero loyalty because we're getting new Dorinthea and new Rhinar and stuff like that, but in a game where you're creating hero or class loyalty, I do think it's reasonable for people to be upset about that, especially, again, I know there's no contract, but there is an implication, I think, in being a competitively designed game. Like if you're designing your game to be if you're designing your game to be competitive, but only a certain subset of those heroes are as such, that's interesting, right? So, yeah, I'm very interested to hear. I'm sure at this point, many of you have already made the comments, if you've made it this far at all. And we should have probably done this we probably should have done this as a beer chat, shouldn't we? But we didn't. But no, I am very interested to hear what you all think about this, right? Because basically this is just me sitting down and be like, why are people so pissed off? It's a balanced meta-ish. Why are people so pissed off? You have to figure it fits back into how Flesh and Blood as a game. And to be fair, doesn't that in of itself mean that Flesh and Blood has been a very successful game, that they can make people so passionate about it, that they can make people so passionate about their heroes, and make people so quote-unquote butthurt when their heroes don't have a shot? I think that's reasonable. Now, I want to be clear. I don't think there's anybody out there. Well, maybe, it's a big world. There's probably one person out there, but I don't think there's many people out there who think that every printed hero has to have a competitive shot. I don't think that's really a thing. That said, I understand why the implication would be there that more heroes should be at the top than just 2 or 3. And then maybe that's a little untrue because how strong freaking Runeblades are because of, well, let's just say I'll link the cast, okay? Runeblades have a distinct advantage, right? So they're always going to be there until they rotate, and then the next one will come out. And you know what? I'll rip the Band-Aid off. Look at the last set. Like, Revel in Runeblood, come on. Like, why? If you look at what was released, yeah, I'm going to rant on it. I'm sorry. Whatever, screw it. You look at what was released in the last set, like, of the top classes got more support than most of the other classes did. So, again, I understand why people would be a little butthurt about that, too. So, anyway, all I'm going to say on that one. But, sorry, folks. I don't know what else to say. I'll have to go back and edit that, I suppose. Maybe I won't. Either way, point is, all of this, let's go ahead and wrap this up because I'm clearly rambling at this point. But I do understand. I don't think people should. I think the meta's fine. Probably only because I'm afraid of where it will go elsewise. But I understand why a reasonable person would not be happy. I do think that there's a contingent out there that's going to bitch no matter what. And unfortunately, I think it's that contingent that's driving a lot of the discussion. I think that's the truth. That said, I understand why we hoped for more, right? I think that's fair. So anyway, folks, thank you very much for joining me for all of this. We definitely should have done this as a beer chat. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. And if nothing else, go Commando.